Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, all you Heaping Spoonful listeners. I'm Kelly Bass, your host, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me the opportunity to visit twice a month with chefs and restaurateurs who help make the Mid-South dining scene one of the big highlights of living in this cool part of the country. I have transitioned to podcast interviewer after being a restaurant reviewer for decades for a couple of Little Rock, Arkansas newspapers and magazines, and I can tell you, talking about food is a lot more fun than writing about it. Our guest today is Diana Bratton, chef and owner of Taco Mama and Taco Mama Sidetown, both in Hot Springs. The second location is located across from the courthouse on Washita Avenue inside the kitchen store in the culinary district. And then Taco Mama's on Malvern Avenue. They're both great spots, and I really hope that you listeners, when you're in Hot Springs, which is one of the coolest places you'll ever go, that you check out Taco Mama Sidetown, or check them out both. So welcome to Heaping Spoonful, Diana.
Thanks, Kelly. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so it's no secret, and full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Taco Mama. In fact, back when I was still doing dining reviews for Arkansas Times, I gushed and gushed about what a great spot it is, and it really, really is. But it was not my decision to feature you on Heaping Spoonful. That was a call by Rusty Mathis, the general manager here at Benny Keith Mid-South, just so we're all clear about that. So we're so glad you're here.
Thanks to the both of you for having me. Rusty and I go back to about 1999.
Yeah, when he didn't have this big old fancy job.
No, he was just a DM.
Yeah, district manager. Yeah, Noelle, I know y'all are great friends, and you and I have had a great time hanging out. My wife, Ashley, your husband, Shane, and hanging out with Rusty and Stacy, so that's great. Taco Mama, while renowned as one of the best Mexican restaurants in Arkansas, and you got the awards to prove it, that wasn't your first restaurant in Hot Springs. That honor goes to Cafe 1217, which is just not even a hard rock's throw across the parking lot from Taco Mama. So how did you get to Hot Springs? And then after that, how did Cafe 1217 happen?
So I moved to Hot Springs in 1995, and my first job here was at Diamante Country Club when they first opened. I was their sous chef. That was my first country club experience, and I kind of knew right out of the gate it wasn't for me. I had my hands tied. I couldn't be as creative as I wanted to be.
Sure.
So I kind of knew then I was going to start doing something. I just didn't know what that something was.
Right. And you're from South Texas. You're from McAllen, right?
Yep.
And you worked at the renowned and beloved City Cafe in Dallas, which I saw closed in January, which interesting timing, given a couple of months later, they would have been closing at least temporarily whether they wanted to or not. And then you spent some time at culinary school, I think both in Texas and in California.
Yes.
What from all of that experience, the City Cafe experience and the dueling culinary school experience, what influenced that when you were thinking up, conceptualizing, and what you ended up serving to your guests at Cafe 1217?
Well, I worked for the original owners, the Schmays. She was a female restaurateur. Mm-hmm. Her son was the baker. Her daughter was the chef. She had 6 kids, and to some capacity, they all did something in the restaurant business. So I really loved working there, and we were family.
Yeah. Well, and you also had a great role model to sit there and look at, Marty, I think her name was, right?
Yeah, Marty. They were from Carmel. So,
oh, okay.
So she had a lot of cooking experience. She did a lot of entertaining back in Carmel.
Right. So yeah, so she kind of brought that California style with her, because I don't know much about City Cafe. Is it a bistro? Is it fine dining? Was it?
It's well, there's actually two. There was 2 places when I worked there. There was 2 places side by side.
Right.
One was fine dining. They had an excellent brunch, an incredible wine list, big names. Used to eat there.
Yeah.
I made Stanley Marcus a sandwich or 2 on the to-go side.
Yeah. That's cool.
So I was kind of sad to hear that it closed. I never knew the new owners.
Yeah, and the only thing I read online was it said that the rent was too high. So you know how fickle the restaurant business is. Which is why having not just survived but thrived as many years as you have, both at 1217 Taco Mama in Sidetown. That's not the norm, but you studied business before you went to culinary school, so I'm sure that's come in handy as you've managed, all a balance sheet and an income statement and food cost and labor cost and pricing and all of that.
Yes, I studied business because I thought it would be something practical. I'd always wanted to go to cooking school, but had never worked at a restaurant. My dad was just like, nope, you're not going to work at a restaurant. It was male-driven back then.
Sure.
So he didn't want his little baby girl working at a restaurant with,
burly guys that might not be very nice to his daughter.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then I know you've said that you distinctly remember the conversation that you had with your mother. So tell us how that went down.
Yeah, so unfortunately, at that point, my father had passed away. They were divorced, so I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I'm not going to finish college. It's kind of a pause. And she said, okay. So I said, I'm going to cooking school. And she said, that's fine. I just want you to commit to finishing.
Right.
And I said, I'm on it. I'll do it. So I did. I had so many student loans. I went to TCU, I went to UT, I went to all these great schools, and I had so many loans. I couldn't go to the CIA in New York.
Yeah, that's just really expensive.
Yeah, so I went to what is now, I don't remember the name now. They've changed the name, but back then it was El Centro College, and it was one of the top 5 cooking schools in America. And I think right now it's number 3.
Wow. So did you know just as soon as you started learning and doing that you were in the right spot?
I jumped just jumped right in. I did a 180. I loved it. Took a couple of trips to Germany, learned a lot of things.
Very cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And so then you came to Hot Springs, and I guess a lot of what you learned along the way is what you later, how long were you at Diamante, and did you go directly from there to getting into 1217?
Yes. So I was there for about a year when I had decided that I was going to do something. I didn't know where or what or when, but I started buying stuff. I started trying to visualize what I wanted to do. I started to buy restaurant, smallwares and plates and and pots and pans and all kinds of stuff. And I looked all over Hot Springs, and everything was kind of what I could afford. It was a little sketchy, too much money to invest. So there's this really cool building in Hot Springs. It looked like a big paint can. And there was a paint store, and they had one suite next to it that was a seamstress. So I go in there, and I'm like, can I talk to the owner? And so I started chatting with him. I said, if she ever decides to leave, I'd love to rent this little spot. And so we talked about what I wanted to do. And he said, why don't you bring some menus or your resume and show me? So I did that about a week later. And he looked that over. And he said, I'll get back with you. So unbeknownst to me, he took a trip to Dallas to make sure I was legit.
Oh, wow.
He went to he went to City Cafe and talked to the owner, and I didn't know any of this.
Oh, that's
so
it's like you were interviewing for a job.
Yeah. So he comes back and calls me and said, hey, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to add on some retail space.
Oh, cool.
You design your restaurant, and I'd never my first one.
Right.
I was kind of in the dark, so I gave him a sketch. He added more suites, and
there you had it.
There, yep.
And Cafe 1217, for those who haven't been or aren't from Arkansas, I mean, it's a high quality, I mean, not a deli, but I mean, it's got prepared foods. It's grab and go or a sit and eat. Just fabulous, because it's one of those places where no matter how many people you have with you, somebody's going to find something that just really trips their trigger and makes them want to get it. So you dove into that, and that was your baby. And so you were rolling on that. So you have sold the cafe, but it's still basically the same kind of place, right? They haven't doctored it up much.
It's the same concept. The owner's taken what recipes and catering and, so on, and he's made it his own.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, I'm sure you wish him nothing but the best, for sure.
Of course.
So knowing your Texas roots and the fact, you worked, obviously, although it wasn't a Mexican theme, you worked in Texas. So it's really not surprising that Taco Mama would be your next project. Tell our listeners how that concept was born and how you ended up right across the parking lot from your other place.
So I was, being from South Texas, being Hispanic, we ate Mexican food just about every single day. If it wasn't for breakfast, we were having it for dinner just about every day. So it was like no big deal to me. When I met my husband, Shane, we were going to take a trip down to McAllen to visit my family, and we stopped at this little dive and had breakfast. Incredible homemade tortillas. I said, these are as close to my mom's as I've ever had. Yeah. And so we had all these different tacos, and he was just blown away.
Right.
I said, it's really good, but you've never had tacos like this before? And he's like, no, never. There's nothing like it in Hot Springs. I said, yeah, I agree to that. So life goes on. We get married, and then the hardware store came up. They were just retiring. They just wanted to close the business. So
yeah, and so again, right across the parking lot, and your husband is a master plumber and an all around handy guy, which would be a great asset to have when you're converting a hardware store into a restaurant. I bet he came in really handy on that project.
Oh my God, he knows a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And he knows people. If he didn't have the answer to something, he knows a lot of people who know a lot.
Yeah, so he can make it happen.
Right.
And he's really, you're clearly the driving force behind that, but Shane's part of the face of that business. I'm always happy to see one or both of you all there, and most of the time one of you is there, although he's got a real job too.
Yeah, he's got a real job.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got that done, but.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. So the hardware store owner, you'd known him when you had 1217.
Yeah, so we were busy right out of the gate. It was Hot Springs, something new.
Yeah.
People were just...
It wasn't a chain.
It wasn't a train. It wasn't a chain. People were coming in droves. Our customers were parking in the hardware spots. So, they weren't real keen about us being there for a while. And then I started to go over there and bring them some brownies or pie. And so I kind of softened them a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Some of your homemade desserts will certainly... They'll soothe the savage beast. That's for sure, no doubt about it. Well, I don't go to Hot Springs without going to Taco Mama unless it's Sunday. Dadgummit. And one of the, I always sit on the bar side. I have said, and one of the reasons is because I love that bar. I mean, the bar is ornate and is super cool. It's almost like I can just sit and kind of gaze upon it. And you told me the story about that, which I didn't know for the first few times I saw it, and I should have, but I didn't put it together. So tell the Heaping Spoonful listeners about that bar.
So in North Little Rock, there was a steakhouse institute called the Sirloins Inn.
Oh, yeah.
And so they decided to close their doors after about 35 years in business. And Shane and I were fortunate enough to be able to buy the whole interior, all their tables. We still have their furniture at Taco Mama, their bar, just a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And people still come in there feel like kind of deja vu, like I've been here before. And they're on the bar side. And I have to tell them the bar's from the Sirloins Inn if you...
Well, that was a legendary place. I remember going there, it was back in the, 80s, and it was the days of salad bars, and they had shrimp on their salad.
Yeah.
Now, there was a little bitty shrimp, but it was still shrimp, and you could have all of them you wanted. I was just and they had just big old good steaks. There's a guy there that worked as a bartender forever, Tim Strammel, who moved over and has been at the Capitol Bar and Grill back when the Capitol Hotel was open. We're recording this on the first day of October of 2020 and the Capitol Hotel is not reopened. So therefore, one of my favorite places to eat hasn't. But I digress. So when you describe your food to people, do you call it Mexican food? Do you call it Tex-Mex? What do you call it?
I call it Mexican food. My manager calls it Diana Mex.
That's good.
So I take authentic recipes and I just make them my own. I don't necessarily feel like you have to cook carnitas in pork fat, just lighten it up a little bit.
Sure. And there's a lot of items that are very familiar to folks who've been to other Mexican restaurants that I'll find on your menu that I haven't seen. But you've been to Mexico and spent time traveling with Shane there, right? And experienced different sorts of foods there?
Yes, we've been to Oaxaca. We've eaten ant larvae and crickets and all kinds of stuff. You just have to dive right in and feel like you're there.
Yeah. Well, tell people again, you mentioned the carnitas and maybe you cook it a little differently, but tell people how your food differs from what people might encounter at other Mexican restaurants in Arkansas.
I feel like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but some Mexican restaurants are just kind of a cookie cutter of each other, same tasting beans, same tasting rice, same margarita. You're just at a different spot.
Yeah.
The salsa just blended in the blender with some jalapenos. So we just try to take it up, kick it up a notch.
Yeah. Well, again, this is our 25th episode of Heaping Spoonful, and a lot of common themes because everybody I've spoken to in doing these interviews has been successful. And it's just a lot about attention to detail and commitment to fresh. And when there might be a shortcut you could take, but, it's not that hard to just make the stuff. But anyway, that's cool. Well, listen, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful with our guest, Diana Bratton, chef and owner of Taco Mama and Taco Mama Sidetown in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So hang on, we'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Hey, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. I'm visiting today with Diana Bratton of Taco Mama, two Taco Mama locations. One of the best Tex-Mex or Mexican restaurants in the land on Malvern Avenue, and the second spot in the heart of downtown. And if you don't know Hot Springs, it's really one of the country's first spa resort destination, and still a ton of fun to go there. If you like lakes, you like horse racing, you like history, it's really cool. So, Diana, before the break, we were talking about what differentiates Taco Mama. And one thing, I said before, is attention to detail and commitment to doing things right. When there's not a raging pandemic going on, I just love the fact I would call lagniappe, just some extra, to borrow a Cajun phrase, just some little extra items that guests can help themselves to while they're there or on the way out the door. Tell us about those things and kind of the motivation behind that.
So I wanted to make it special when we opened. Add a few little touches. We had, we would salt roast fresh jalapenos a couple of times a day and put them out for people to take to their table. We had a really nice salsa bar with all of our homemade salsas, of course, a different variety. And you just come up and feel at home.
Yeah.
Go pick out your salsas. We've since had to change that,
Yeah, you can't just lay out items during this period of time.
Right.
But people can still get them if they ask, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of
yes.
course.
And then I remember, again, when you still had Cafe 1217, I was gushing about how great your tamales were, and I believe a woman who worked for you at 1217 made them.
Yes, Rosie used to make our tamales at 1217, and I actually went to Sonora and hung out with her mom, and we cooked for about a week.
Oh, wow.
So she showed me how to make tamales her way.
Oh, that's great.
And we've kind of stuck to that recipe.
Yeah, well, they're fabulous. And, that's another thing that's easy to take a shortcut. And not that there's not some good food service products out there on tamales, but... And me, I don't come often enough to get in a rut, so I'm all about the chorizo and scrambled eggs and with the black beans is my deal. And then the puffy tacos are fabulous, and the top shelf margarita because you got good tequilas. What are some of the things that keep your guests coming back? Things that would be like, oh, if you took this off the menu, there would be a revolution or a revolt.
I would definitely say our carnitas and our barbacoa.
Right.
It's pretty authentic. I think in a blind taste test, if we cooked it or somebody in Mexico cooked it, I think we'd be neck to neck.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. And then you also said your Mexican burger is a favorite. Tell us how that's different than just a burger you're going to get a regular burger joint in Little Rock.
So it's actually, when we went to Oaxaca, we had a burger out of a cart, and it was very similar. The only thing that made it different was the addition of the New Mexico hatch chilies. So we add that to our burger. But it tastes pretty street cart, Mexican street cart burger.
Well, that's good because, burgers are pretty ubiquitous, so it's nice to have something that's a little bit different. So do you have a favorite dish off your menu or not? Or can you not choose one?
I really can't choose one because everything on there is something that I like. I don't put anything on my menu that I kind of like.
Right.
I got to like it and love it a lot.
Well, again, when you walk into a Mexican restaurant, pretty much anywhere, certainly in Arkansas, the waiter or waitress comes up and the first thing they do is drop off chips and salsa, and then they go to get your drinks. So you dive in because you're always hungry. You dive into the chips and salsa, and you know what? They're usually pretty mediocre. Not that I don't eat them, but your salsa is transcendent. It is by far my favorite salsa. And Ashley and I just first bite, we just look at each other and go, "Oh, this is so good." So, how do you? I mean, you don't have to give me the exact recipe, but tell us how you make your salsa. What's the key of it?
So every morning we get there and we fire up the grill, and we fire roast about 3 cases of tomatoes, about a half a case of cebollitas, which are spring onions, and jalapenos. And then we throw that in a bucket with other seasonings, fresh garlic, give it a blitz, and that's our salsa. It's got a little smoky, it's just a little different element.
Yeah, I guess you've learned.
A little char.
You've learned it's definitely smoky. And you can look at it and tell that it's not bright red. It's got a little, it's been cooked down. And then you also, you make your chips in-house.
Yeah, we buy our chips from Benny Keith.
Yeah.
We fry them.
Right.
We don't get them pre-made.
Yeah, so you fry them up.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's your beans, which again you got the big 3, pinto, black, and refried, and there's no cans involved in any of that, right?
No, not at all. So we were fortunate enough when we bought the sirloins in, we got this big gas steam kettle. I don't know if you're familiar with that, and that's what we cook all our beans in and our meats. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good. If I'd really played my cards right, I probably could have got you to bring me some to go, but I didn't even think about it. So I'll just have to make my way to Hot Springs.
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool. So what are other things that you all you fry your crunchy chips, but the tortillas, do you get them? You get them from Brenda's?
Well, our flour tortillas we hand press in-house. We have a tortilla press, and we have a big rotomall, which is a rotating grill. We press the tortilla, it slides down on the grill, and we make the flour from scratch. So they are definitely, it's a game changer. If you've ever had any of those that are wrapped up in foil and they're kind of rubbery, it's a whole different tortilla.
Yeah, and the corn ones from Brenda's, I'll drive to Southwest Little Rock to buy those. If we're having people over, I need a bulk. And it's so fun to go in there and watch them. They're just coming off the line,
Right.
And maybe the daughter speaks English, but the parents don't speak English. But it's right next to Taqueria Carino, which is also a really good spot,
love that
too.
place.
Yeah.
So, we support local. But if you request, our kitchen's kind of small. And so if we're slammed, it's a little difficult, but if you want us to press some corn tortillas for you, that's not a problem.
Ah, all right. Remember, I've got this recorded now, so you can't say you didn't say that. We can go back and get it. So I'm always happy when I pull in the parking lot. It's, again, only about an hour from my house. And anybody who pulls in there usually sees your huge and fantastically decorated food truck. So is that something you've had the whole time you've had it? And how often does it make its way out of the parking lot?
So we have had it for about 5 years. We redid the whole thing, and we'd use it for catering, weddings, block parties, last year we did the first good run in Hot Springs.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, so it's at Northwoods Trails, and that was their first experience and our first experience. So they've invited us back. But
Cool. So you do it for special events. It's not a thing where you go out and just set up somewhere and sell tacos out of it.
Not yet.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. Yeah. So tell us about the other incarnation of Taco Mama, which is Taco Mama Sidetown, it's a lunch-only place, Tuesday through Friday. So obviously you're going after the downtown workforce. Tell us when that opened and what your goal with that one is.
So they've always had a kitchen. Their main location is in LA. They have a kitchen store with a restaurant in it. So when they did the Hot Springs location, the owner's wife is from Hot Springs.
Oh, okay.
So when they did the Hot Springs store, they decided to put a kitchen in it. So
And what's the name of the store?
the Culinary District.
The store is the Culinary District.
The store is the Culinary District,
Okay.
and they have a kitchen, small dining room, and I would have to say the most beautiful patio in Hot Springs.
Oh, cool.
You could eat outside.
Yeah, so it's a kitchen implement store. I mean, pots, pans,
Right.
spatula.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And so, but you serve not the same menu there, right? Or some of the same?
Some of the same, since we're open for a short period of time. We do make our corn tortillas there from scratch. I use some masa in which the corn comes from Oaxaca.
Oh, wow.
So I have a little bit more time to do the corn tortillas there. And of course we use our flour tortillas that Taco Mama on Malvern makes for us.
And you said you do some vegetarian and vegan things there?
Yes, we have a bigger vegetarian option and vegan option. One of our bigger sellers is a Chipotle sweet potato burger that I came up with.
Ooh.
And that patty is vegan, and the protein being white bean.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Well, I'll have to make a weekday trip and check out that patio. It's beautiful weather in the fall in Arkansas. So, again, as I said earlier, for our listeners, we're recording this 1st of October of 2020, and maybe one of these days, I'm 25 in and I haven't stopped yet, but I'm going to not have to ask this question on Heaping Spoonful, but here you go. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted you? When did you close? Did you do takeout, curbside? When did you reopen? How's business been? All the usual stuff.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I believe the governor made the announcement on a Thursday that the following day restaurants would be shut down, and they were going to offer curbside or close.
And that was mid-March.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lie. I'm sitting there. We're sitting there at the bar watching TV, and so when that was over, I said, "We got to make some decisions really fast."
Yeah.
And we had our employees asking us questions that we didn't know how to answer. It was all so surreal. So I sat down that very evening, and I was like, "We're going to have to step out of the box." Let's do some meal kits where they can heat at home.
Right.
Let's add some desserts. Let's add some vegan options. Let's do this. Let's do that. And so we did that, and we were fortunate. The first week was really kind of scary. So it was just my manager and I. She was answering the phone, and I was on the line. I haven't worked this hard in a long time. I've worked harder in the pandemic when everybody's remodeling their houses and redoing their closets and painting. I was
You were slinging food.
Slinging food.
Yeah. Well, I know, and it's you care so much about your employees, and you want to do your best to keep them going too. So when were you able to reopen? I guess when everybody was able. Did you go ahead and open up when you were allowed?
Yes, we did. But before we were reopened, I did have most of my kitchen back because we had to keep hammering our menus and throwing it out there and telling people what our specials were and what our new soup was and so on and so forth. So I couldn't do it by myself.
No.
So we got some kitchen help in there, and that was for a few weeks, and then they made the decision to do a third. We did a third, but we were still doing a lot of takeout. So.
And and then it's now at 2/3. And so you've just closed some tables, just made them unavailable for seating.
Yes. Fortunately, we have a big yard in which my husband was so protective of that grass. He just, he was like, okay, we're going to put some patio tables out there. So we were able to social distance enough patio tables and chairs in the yard and on the patio.
Yeah.
So on the patio, we can only put 2 tables out there. So we were able to put enough seating out there to make up the difference that we were losing inside.
Yeah.
But I feel like most people want to eat outside.
It really has. And a lot of folks have just kind of, and some of the stuff will never change. I mean, you'll probably do more takeout than you used to do just because people have gotten used to it. And again, sometimes it's not nice to sit outside in Arkansas, but sometimes it is. Well, I'm glad that it sounds like it's actually probably worked about the best it could have. And I know, again, we talked about Shane, and you told me that he's put in some different kind of technologies and a UV halo system, that keeps the air clean and does some stuff like that. So that's so have you any lessons you've learned during this crazy time that might make you better at running your restaurants in the future?
Don't take today for granted.
Yeah.
At all.
You might be watching TV and the governor might tell you got to close the next day.
That's
You never
right.
know. Well, listen, before we close, let me ask, is there anything else on the horizon? I mean, you got 2 spots now. Are you holding tight, or you always have your eyes open?
I always have my eyes open. Our catering is exploding. We're doing good there, but I have some ideas of things I want to do when I, quote unquote, slow down.
Yeah.
So,
So you run all your catering just right? I mean, you can just crank it all out at the kitchen at Taco Mama?
well, that was one of the reasons we did Sidetown. It came available. It was an extra space.
Yeah. So even when you're not open for business there, you can be in there cooking.
Right. So the kitchen store is closed on Monday, so obviously we're closed on Monday. So it gives me a day to do things, test recipes,
Sure.
so on and so
Great.
forth.
Well, listen, thanks, Diana, and continued good luck in all you do at Taco Mama and Taco Mama Sidetown. Thanks to all of you out there for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We put them up the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month. So go to wherever you get your podcasts, and heck, you found it because you're listening today. Check out the ones you've missed and keep an eye out for new episodes of Heaping Spoonful. Goodbye, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.